episode number 84. Today, we're all recorded live Sunday, April 7th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at iTechGear.org. And joining us today, the dulcet tones are back. We're dulceting again. It's nice. This is the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, Mr. Chris Gavula. And of course, editor here at iTechGear.org. How are you, Chris?
Doing okay. Have had a challenging few weeks, and probably will have a challenging few more. But hanging through. That's what we do.
That's it. You're at the end.
Glad to be here. Glad to be
at the end of your rope, and you're swinging. That's it.
Well, yeah. You're one that pushed me off the deck, but you know.
It's part of my job. You got to look at the job description. All right.
I know. That's always good to know. But glad to be here again. Glad to be back.
Good. And also joining us today, live from the middle of the heartland, the former contributing writer over at Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and living in the retro, not just the arcade, but the retro arcade podcast, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well tonight. Just had my birthday, so I'm feeling good and happy.
Awesome. Also, of course, editor over here at iTechGear.org, and we're glad that you're here. Unfortunately, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, he caught a spell. He is. He's unfortunately feeling under the weather and cannot be here with us tonight. So, Dr. McJunkin, we are here for you, sir, and we hope you feel better soon. So,
we do.
And speaking of things retro,
were we?
We were.
Okay.
Not really, but we are.
We're speaking of things as retro. Which is pretty much
like I said, today we're all retro.
We're all retro.
We're all retro today. All right. And apparently, so is Apple, because retro gaming emulators are now in the Apple App Store. How about them apples?
So they're going to be allowed. I don't know. Are there any new ones yet? Or are they just allowing them? I don't know if they've actually seen anything pop up.
I haven't seen it. I honestly haven't seen anything yet, but it was interesting that they actually opened this up, because for a great long while, these kinds of emulators were verboten, weren't they, Joel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even though they're allowed, there's still like a huge caveat with them.
I was going to say there's some real rules against it. Not against it, but in place regarding them, right?
Correct.
Right. Correct. Any of the games that you can download via the app, which most of the apps never allowed to download games, so I don't know what this means for those apps. But if your app does that, then they have to have basically Apple's approval. Basically, what that really means is you have to have the right to distribute the thing. So if you don't have this right to distribute the arcade game ROM, then you're not allowed to do it.
Right. And I don't know how. It's a lot of those ROMs are available. I wouldn't necessarily say on the dark web, but it's definitely a gray area. Wouldn't you guys say? I mean,
yes.
Really?
Yeah, but even if they don't distribute it themselves, how do you get it to the app?
This is where I'm going. This is where I'm going. If it's not directly downloadable from the emulator,
you'd have to be able to copy it over to your phone or your iPad in order to use it.
iCloud Drive or something, and try to
put
that thing.
Most of the iPhones and iPads these days. Well, in these days you have a Files app and it can load. There is local storage, but that you can access now that you didn't. Years ago we couldn't, but now we can. But the thing is, will the apps be allowed to point to there to get these?
Exactly. This is where I'm going.
ROMs.
That's right.
They may not be allowed to do that because of the quote unquote. We'll just call it the gray area around the whole thing. Apple's going to want to avoid that kind of stuff. They always have.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know where that's going to put us. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the fact that they're doing it at all is a surprise.
It is.
Right.
It is. And this is not without its gotchas or caveats or issues
of
or
course.
problems that we're going to have to figure out, because you would think that, okay, so those game emulators are going to be able to play this, that, or the other thing, or they should be able to do it. And
you would hope.
ROM A is available for download, but ROM B is not. How do you get that to work? Can you get that to work? Will it work?
Well,
what ways are going to be?
Well, and there's the whole legality of abandonware, and what does that really do? All those
right.
questions. It raises a lot of questions. It raises more.
And this is why initially that they weren't allowed, because there were too many.
Right. Exactly.
There were too many. There were too many. Yeah. Too many gotchas, and Apple just said, it's not a headache that we want. That we want to be liable for, or we want our users to have to worry.
But here's what's changed, and I've read a number of people have said, well, this is one of the positives of Apple being forced by the EU to do this and do that, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, because here's the thing. Now the only thing Apple's going to be able to do, the only thing it really did for them in this particular case, just in this particular case, is if all of a sudden somebody starts downloading illegal stuff and using illegal stuff or gray area stuff, Apple can say, we were forced to do it. We were forced to allow it.
Right. It ain't us.
It ain't us. We still think it's wrong. We still think it's wrong, but it gives them an out, I guess, where they didn't have that out before.
Maybe. Maybe
that's all it is. I don't know. That's speculation.
There's a lot of that going to go on this week, and
I think
this
so.
Particular segment, simply because of the topics that we've got to discuss. But
that's true.
There's a lot that's happening right now with Apple and these new with the DMA that coming out of the EU forcing.
But the short form is, in this case, hey, if you're looking for retro stuff, there might be a glimmer of hope for you. That's what it comes down to.
Possibly, right? And it's not.
And we do like the retro stuff. We do like it here.
We do. Well, we're old farts, We're busy shooing people off our lawns and everything. So
yeah, that's true.
Yes,
and
we are.
Speaking of shooing people off your lawn, guess what Apple just did? They shooed 600 people off their lawn. They laid off 600 people.
Yes, they did.
Not unexpectedly,
this is
no.
I would say not unexpectedly, because it's basically you were working on a project. Actually, I think this actually more than confirms the actual Apple car. All we know is the rumors, and we also heard the rumor that they stopped developing them, and now we really know that they weren't necessarily rumors, because hey, they laid 600 people off.
600 people off, and from what I understand, this particular layoff affected a number of different individuals, happening to they were working in a secret location, which really tends to be something that everyone could attribute to Project Titan, which was, of course, the Apple car related projects.
I don't know how secret a location was. Even the news story about it said it was Santa Clara County.
Santa Clara.
I think it was pretty clear.
Not Cupertino.
Nudge, wink. You know what I mean? Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's it's not the ones. They're not laying off 600 from the spaceship. So
that is true.
So it's all their other 8 other locations in Santa Clara County.
Sure. From what I understand, Apple did have to file a California based notice indicating effectively that, hey, it's coming. I believe the notice was delivered earlier this month in April, and I believe that the actual layoff date, I believe, is sometime next month, beginning of next month or thereabouts. So they've at least got a little bit of time to look around and see what else they can find, and hopefully find a job and sort of weed themselves out,
Yep.
And I think Apple is always, they prefer to relocate within if they can, but again, if these guys are hardware guys specifically associated with a car,
right? If these guys
but we know this, we know some of the people were AI related, so they may well just move to the AI team.
Yes.
So we know that's true too. So there's
yes, but and we'll see. That obviously would be would not affect these 600 because they would have already been moved, or at least told that they were being moved to a different project.
I think the other thing, well, right. But no, but there may be opportunities, I guess is what I'm getting at, that they could investigate or apply for within the company, because they will get some preferential treatment for that. But what I was going to say is, so there's 600 people here at Apple. That is much smaller than the numbers that people like Google and Facebook have laid off in recent years. Much smaller numbers.
They're not even, they just crested over half a thousand, right? Google, Facebook, and even Microsoft, I think, had
they were in the, well, weren't they in the tens?
Well over 10,000. Over 10,000. So they laid off more than 10 times.
It's still sad to see. It is what it is,
because the tech industry has really taken a hit. I know from the pandemic rather, that a lot of companies. Hey, you shouldn't be wearing.
Oh dear!
I don't know if you've heard, but you shouldn't be wearing denture cream because it slips and anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So a lot of companies overhired during the pandemic, especially
I think they did.
The key areas, and now that we're sort of going back into more of a hybrid mode. A lot of companies are hiring hybrid as opposed to either fully remote or fully on site, and so they just don't need as many folks. Even if they went 100% on site, they wouldn't need as many. Even with sort of remote, they don't need as many folks.
I think the move back to what we're doing the way we are now is it has also it's changed the skill sets that are needed. And so some people were hired for very specific skill sets that are just no longer in demand. So
which is welcome especially for us, because we no longer have to worry about the moneymaker.
Well, welcome to every industry, right? I mean, they all are doing this.
Yeah, because not every company goes on camera. So there you go.
Not every company goes on camera. Yeah. There you go.
No.
So they say let people go. Yeah. But they're still moving forward, aren't they?
They are, because and we kind of sort of covered this just a little bit, perhaps a week or so ago, maybe a little bit longer, but there are reported changes coming to the iPhone 16, and there are a number of really interesting changes that are in fact coming. The biggest, of course, being that the camera bump, that square camera bump that has been so Apple-esque, if you will, has been so much Apple, is likely going away, because apparently in order to shoot the appropriate kinds of video for the Apple Vision Pro, you need cameras that are lined up in a row. It's kind of sort of like the Samsung the Samsung array, right?
Now I will say we have a couple of links, and one of the links actually says, gee, we don't know why they're changing the order of the cameras. And it's like, yeah, we do. Lots of other stories told us that.
Right.
So
and that's why I mentioned it.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Right. The CNET link that we've got doesn't necessarily go into details. It goes, so I
don't know, they're doing it. We don't know why.
Yes, we do know why.
We do know why.
Pro. It's because of the Vision Pro. In order to get that 360 sort of immersive look, the cameras actually have to be side by side and not.
Yeah, I was going to say they either had to go across like Google has done with the Pixel line, or they have to go vertical.
Yes, but they have to be next to each other. So it's either all horizontal or all vertical. And apparently Apple took a key from the Samsung playbook and went vertical.
And they're getting that mostly from what? From the vendors that are making cases ahead of time?
Yeah, they usually do. They usually do. And it usually is the cases companies that usually sort of go ahead and crack that nut and let the cat out of the bag. So
that's the biggest, most obvious change. But there's some other things that we're being talked about too. Are there not?
Right. They're supposed to be at least it's speculated that it's going to show up on the Pro variants of the iPhone 16. There's going to be a dedicated video capture button, hardware capture button in there. It is also anticipated that every iPhone 16 will also have the action button. So on the Pro side, you're going to have the action button. You're going to have your up and your volume rocker, or your up and your down buttons. You're going to have the sleep button, and then you're also going to have a separate video capture button. So
it's such an interesting trend, because we've spent quite a few years removing connections, removing buttons, removing things from our devices, and now we're going to start to add them back. And I've always said these things are cyclical. And
they are.
Here we go, and here we go,
and here we go. We're starting to round that corner. So
and watch, by the way, and Joel, you'll probably be the first to. You probably would be one of the first to say this kind of thing. Is if Apple does it, what happens? Everybody's going to mimic them, just because that's what they do.
Be a me too.
There's always seems to be a follow on.
It's kind of sad, really, but yeah.
But true.
Yeah,
true.
But they always do it. They always seem to do it. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
We'll see. There's also, and not to go into massive discussion with a couple of other things, but the Pro and the Pro Max are supposed to actually be a little bit bigger this time around. So some size or some screen size changes. Of course, they always got to do different colors and whatnot. So there's
hearing possibly upwards of 16 colors this time.
Yeah. So there's a lot of potential colors that,
and I think the bigger
16.
I think the bigger is the screen's bigger, but not necessarily the body. I don't know. I don't quite know for sure how that is, because it's already pretty
thinner bezels, even less space for you to grab your phone from.
Yes.
Again, I've never found this to be such a problem with the phone, as long as the screen didn't wrap around the edge of the phone, because as long as the phone is relatively like flat or grabbable on the edges, it's fine. Where I always had a problem is when they do this to the tablets, because the tablets, you are working with it two-handed. You aren't grabbing it edge to edge with your hand and holding it in between or anything like that.
Correct.
It's much harder with a tablet if you don't have a bezel to grab onto. So
well, here my problem is when you stick a phone in a case, the edges of your case makes it a pain to deal with the screen.
Yep.
So
nope, you're right.
I'm not a huge fan of even thinner bezels.
Me neither.
Because who's not going to put the stupid case? Heck with all the colors. I don't make them silver. Make them all silver, because we're putting them in the cases anyway. Any sane person does that.
I will go ahead, and I'm going to channel Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, who will tell you most of the young people today, they have their devices go naked. There's no case.
I know that's the thing right now. And I will say, again, I've said this before. I have the silicone case online.
Does Dr. McJunkin, yes.
And that has probably the thinnest overwrap, if you will, of all the of the cases that I've worked with out there. It doesn't intrude onto the screen virtually at all
as much. Right.
But I'm with Joel. I am not a big fan of getting rid of bezels for the sake of getting rid of bezels. I think people forget the reason they're there. There's a reason we have them, and multiple reasons, really. And this is exactly a good example. Is this screen, the wraparound of a case? It has to be able to clip onto something, and that's got to come over to the front a little bit.
Right. It does. It
Give
does.
it room.
And wasn't it
some room?
Samsung that actually had the screen wrap around the edge, and there was
and I was
did.
Constantly,
it was a big disaster,
typing.
as I recall.
Well, people liked it because it looked gorgeous. There's no question. It looked great.
Their screens always do look good.
This sort of infinity look, it kind of goes up and up. And I had one of those. I had an Edge 7, and I loved the device. It was great, but I couldn't hold it without accidentally activating crap like the sidebar. It would happen to me all the time, and that was a challenge
for many folks, and that was, I think, the biggest reason why you don't see that feature on some of the newer Samsung phones today.
I think it's true.
Really it wasn't practical.
Well, I'm a big fan of kind of the flatter edges, because it lets my thumb and my finger hold it firmly, as opposed to rounded edges. If they're not too rounded, I'm not too bad with it. But if they're really rounded, I don't have the grip. That I would like. I like the flat edges because I have the grip on it. And a lot of people
I heard that about you.
Yeah. But a lot of phones are kind of in that mode right now. A lot of them are. Not all of them, but a lot of them are right there with it. And we'll see where they go with it. But so we'll see how this goes. I'm not crazy about the bigger bezels, but we'll see where, excuse me, the littler bezels, I should say.
Yeah, the smaller bezels, right. Well, yeah.
I don't think that's the trend. I think we don't need to go any further, but hey, we'll see.
We will.
So
we will. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move us to our mobile and Linux segment.
Okay.
And there's a couple things in here that really kind of caught our attention over the last week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently Chrome incognito mode is not as incognito as you may think.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with this? I mean, there were more than one story about this.
Well, this story, for those of you, you probably saw it in the mainstream press a lot. It was popping up all over the place in the last week or so. So here's the deal, historically.
So what is incognito?
So incognito mode was supposed to give you some sense of privacy when you were browsing through a web browser. It's supposed to not share your data back to an extent. Not trackable. It's not that you were invisible. It's not that you were invisible and couldn't be seen. Yeah, and you could argue how much invisibility did you really have in an incognito mode? What was promised versus what was really delivered?
Right.
Those things could be were always kind of questionable anyway. But Google does have a history of saying they're not going to track you and then tracking you and then getting caught at it. It just isn't new. It isn't anything that just all of a sudden popped up. This incognito mode in browsing doesn't really surprise me. They have an incognito mode in YouTube that I'm sure really does track you, even though they say
I'm certain that that's a complete utter farce. But here's that's how YouTube makes money. That's that's
what I was going to get at. So again, if you go back to Google's business model was about, the whole reason they bought Android way back when, was and got it on board in their thing was because they wanted a delivery mechanism for their advertising services and a way to collect data for their advertising services. That was the whole point. That was their business model. It's still their business model. Why would anybody be surprised that they're collecting and using tracking data and collecting and using stuff even when you're in incognito mode? So the result to this, to this particular thing is they're going to get rid of a bunch of data, millions of records of data. And everybody says, oh, great, they're getting rid of millions of records of data. But much of it is like much older, not recent. And so it's kind of a misleading thing. It's not really quite as open and honest as it ought to be.
Speaking about there that isn't quote unquote quite relevant is so old.
Yeah, but
how old is it? It's so old.
It's so old. But the thing is
that it really doesn't provide good trending or tracking on
anything anymore.
Individuals' behavior.
They've already sold it or done what they needed to do with it. They're done with it. They're beyond it.
Right.
So it's like, okay, you're not really giving up anything. But here's the thing, again, whether or not they offered you this incognito mode that turned out to kind of be a lie, or whether or not they ever said they wouldn't track and that turned out to be a lie, guys, this is what they've always based their business model on. They've been very open about that part of it from the beginning. Why would any of this surprise you?
Oh, it shouldn't.
It really shouldn't surprise anybody because, yes, it is disingenuous and even bordering on dishonest. But the core thing that they do for their business, they've always been open about. So take it for what it's worth. They've always been this kind of inconsistent in their messaging. So just assume you're going to be tracked, kids. You're on the internet. Welcome to the internet.
Right. It is the internet, and the only way that anybody is making any money on the internet is through advertising, number one. And in order for them to reach you with the right kinds of ads, and when I say by the right kinds of ads, those
stuff that you're going to click on,
you individually are going to be interested in. I may be interested in cooking and may love to see ads about cooking. May not be interested in cooking, and it's a complete waste of time to have cooking ads display on Joel's screen as opposed to mine. So you've got to be able to tailor or curate those.
Well, you don't got to be able to, but it certainly will. It'll increase your click through. It'll increase your click through rates if you do stuff like that. So yes, you're going to want you as a business owner are going to want to do that. But as a consumer, you don't necessarily want that.
No, you don't.
Maybe you do. Maybe you don't.
The problem is that money is made on the internet. And they're moving to service models, and service models require, that's where they're going to make their money. They're not making it in hardware. They're not making it in software anymore. They're making it in these service models, and this is how they make their monmoney, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not. That's what they're doing. The reason that you see so many ads is because money is made not in sense of dollars, but in terms of pennies, nickels, dimes, pennies.
Let me channel Dr. Larry for a moment as well.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
And in extending this a little bit, there's a lot of services out there now that will sell you and say, hey, we're going to give you privacy by putting you on a VPN or by putting you on encrypted email or whatever. Guys, it really doesn't do what you think it does.
No.
And you're still tracked. You're still able to be tracked. You're still able to be followed through. It's just a little less obvious.
It's a little less obvious, and those folks that are actually doing it are actually paying a premium fee to do it, and so you get their ads and not everybody else's. So, I'm not just saying, but I'm saying.
So let's understand. This is the world we're in. If you're going to be on the net, which I think we all need to be, it's becoming a more and more necessity every day.
Right.
Understand that the side effect of that is the concept of privacy goes away more and more every year.
Right.
And sad, but it's true.
You should expect the Minority Report sort of tailored advertising treatment at some point. It's going to happen.
Fair enough.
We all right. They're going to find you. They're going to see you. And while you're doing it, you're going to interact with some level of hologram or other recording that says, hey, Mr. Spera, how was the Anakin Afghanistan that you bought last week? Here's a great partner for that.
We have a new widget to sell you.
Yes, we have a new widget. All right. And we think you're going to love it because it'll pair wonderfully with all those other things that you bought when you were watching our ads. So there you go.
So the good news is, the bad news is we're being tracked more than ever.
Everywhere you go.
And they're not honest about it. Nobody's honest about it. But
the good news.
The good news is we're going to possibly be letting up on this stupid non-net neutrality that we've had for the last few years, which has been idiotic.
Neutrality is making a comeback. I mean, I saw this and I
really should be.
What? What the what?
This is another situation where politicians got involved. I remember when the head of the FCC was appointed by the last administration, and his big thing was he was going to impose this remove net neutrality, which basically would allow vendors, carriers to segment traffic so that you could pay more and get better, or pay less and get worse, and advertising, no advertising, whatever they wanted to do with
which is one of the reasons why every streaming service and their brother is now changing the way that they film and display content so that they can insert ads.
And it also led toward a lot of the deals that we see between the streaming providers and the cell carriers in the U.S. All of this stuff is a result of that. And I said at the time, this is a terrible idea. You need to leave the net. But net neutrality basically means it's the same for everyone.
Data is data. Content is
data. Is data. And the idea
there's no priority.
The idea for that has to do with the fact that it's become a necessary service, and you have to treat it like what the phone companies always called common carrier status. And you basically, you basically treat it hands off. You are not doing anything to the data. You're not touching the data. You're not screwing with the data. You're not limiting it, stripping it. You're not doing anything with it.
You're not going to.
You're just passing it. All you're doing is transmitting it. That's all you're going to do with it.
And that is all that you're going to do.
So electricity, gas and oil, and now the net is going to basically all be, phones.
Correct.
They're all going to be treated this way. Again. Now, how long will this last? I don't know. Till the next administration? Who knows? Who knows how long this will last?
That's very true. That's very. It's interesting.
We could be flipped back every 4 years for all I know.
It's interesting. It's interesting how number 45 went, and one of the first things that president did was execute a executive order that undid all of the executive orders that president felt was inappropriate. The first thing that number 46 did was the exact same thing. First day in office, issued an executive order that undid every executive order that number 45 put in.
And let's understand that this has started in recent administrations. This has not
true.
always gone along.
It's correct.
You know, there used to be
it's been happening. It's been happening far longer than that.
Yeah. But there used to be a time where people kind of respected the decisions that were made in prior things. But
correct.
Executive power has definitely become a much bigger issue in the last generation or so here, and definitely there's been these games that are played with it. But this was part of that. There was the head of the FCC was specifically put in place to do this. That was his big thing. That was the big thing that they wanted done, and did it right away. It was all done very early on. It was all done.
I agree.
And I kept screaming at the time, this is politicians getting involved in technology and doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Please stay out of it. Please stay out of it.
Please stop. Please stop. Because you're doing it again.
So here we go. So in this case, this one's right to pull it back, but I don't know that would last forever either. Who knows?
Oh, correct. Completely correct.
Right.
We've seen these things flip flop on everybody's plates so many times. I don't know anymore.
It is.
But
if this means I don't get a whole bunch of damn crap I don't need. When I go to get my phone.
Speaking,
at Verizon.
This is from a red versus blue versus red. This is probably one of the best things that the blue people ever did.
I think so too. And it should, but if you get it, but the funny thing is, it wasn't a blue versus red issue. It only became a blue versus red issue. And again, I don't want to go down that path too far, but the point is, it never should have been. And I'm kind of glad that it's being undone, regardless of who undoes it.
Right.
I'm just happy to see it undone. I hope it stays undone. But I think the only way these kinds of things stay undone with the way we're structured these days is Congress would have to pass laws to put these things in place. That's the way you stop the executive branch from changing it every other administration. And the thing is, you could get another red or another blue in a row that still doesn't agree with it and changes it again. So it doesn't really matter who. It's all about what they think. And until we get a law, and that I hate to say, gee, more regulation, guys, but this is one of those things. It should be put in place the same way that we do for electricity, the same way that we do for phones, the same way that we do for any of these core services. We really should just take those as a model, rubber stamp it, pass it, and be done with it. But that's not what we've done so far. So we'll see. But remember, Chris and you and I've talked about this, but not the politics of it, but we've talked about this before. We were taught in college. One of the things you'll know is when technology comes out, it takes a generation or two past that technology before we learn to socialize that technology. We're just getting there with the internet, kids. We're just getting there.
Right. So this treats the internet as a common carrier. It allows for anonymity of priority of traffic or no priority of traffic. It's just traffic is traffic, kids. And there's no well, what are those things called? HOV lanes. There's no HOV lane, right? There's no high octane.
Well, and again, and hopefully that'll stop a lot of these weird little side deals, as Joel said, the 17,000 things that they try to dump on you when you and try to get and make you act like you're getting something for that money, which you're not.
Right. So there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us along a little bit. But wait, we'll be right back after this quick message. Hi, this is Christopher Spera with iTechGear.org, and I'm here to tell you that iTechGear.org and the iTechGear Weekly are on Patreon. Patreon is a platform for creators, allowing them to express their creative side in an organized, marketable fashion and earn a living or create a really cool kind of side hustle. You can create a community around your hobby of choice. You can gain followers. You can get members and supporters all along the way. You can create subscription products that for a pledged amount every month, you'll provide to your members and followers. Setup is easy, prices are reasonable, and you can have your pledges auto-deposited into an account of your choice every month. With iTechGear.org, our initial offering is a monthly newsletter for just $3 a month. This is our initial offering, and we'll have other tiers and other products and other offers up in the coming months. Become a patron of our site. Grow with us, and we'll provide you with the tech understanding that you're missing right now. Join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/iTechGear. That's www.patreon.com/iTechGear. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 84. Today, we're all retro. And I want to take us into our Windows segment. And there's some pretty interesting stuff that's going on in the Windows segment. There's an interesting article over at ZDNet. A Windows 12 based prediction. Is it coming in 2024 or not? Or will it come later? Is it going to show up as maybe not Windows 12, but as like a Windows 11 AI or some level of AI version of Windows? And yeah.
Well, we've heard so many rumors about this.
We have, and I'm singling out this one particular article over at ZDNet simply because of the person that wrote it. He is a friend of the site, Ed Bott. Both Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I know him personally. He used to hang out with all the WUGNET guys back in the day when the day included trade shows and whatnot. So he was one of the guys that hung out with the WUGNET folks there. So good guy, knows his stuff. So
he hung with the Wuggies.
He did hang with the Wuggies.
Yes.
It is. Don't let Larry hear you say that.
I had to go there. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. So there is a rumor that, going around that is it going to be Windows 12? Likely yes. All right, there will actually be a Windows 12. And will it include AI? Most definitely. It will have some greater AI stuff in it than you are seeing now. Microsoft is heavily pushing Copilot and Copilot Pro, which is effectively their paid version of ChatGPT-4 and ChatGPT-4 Turbo. So, and they are hot and heavy into it. They want like $20 a month per user for ChatGPT Pro, or Copilot Pro. And holy smokes, that I don't know that I would give you $20 a month for that.
No. Well, and so there's a couple of things going on here, right? First of all, will it be called Windows 12? Will it not be called Windows 12? We've heard this over and over, this kind of split
I've heard
conversation
yes,
about
no. I've heard yes, I've heard no.
And I've heard arguments that are valid. Like you'd want to call it Windows 12 in the sense that gives you a marketing leg up by giving it a different name and giving it something to brand on your new PCs. It sells new PCs. It does all that for you. But the question is really, are you going to make enough changes to justify that new moniker? I don't know.
Well, if you go back step into the Wayback Machine, come here.
Well, they've been rolling changes out for a long time.
Well, if you remember back in the day, Windows 10 was said to be the last version.
They did.
They said that out loud.
But again, they learned you have no marketing leverage.
Exactly. There
when you do
is
that.
no marketing bump with the release of any major something or other, right?
But the problem is they're not really releasing major somethings or others. They're doing it in small chunks all along. So where does that leave you to go? You haven't left yourself any room to make a large jump.
Right. And if you remember back in the day, the Windows 95 release, all right, was one of the biggest smash hit marketing
but also think about how different Windows 95 was from Windows 3. It was very different. Very different.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But you also have to understand that if they did not have that marketing bump, it may have been,
true enough.
Same thing with Windows 98, right? When there was enough of a difference there, and it didn't have as much of a success from a marketing perspective as the Windows 95 event did.
Well, but almost for a different reason though, because the problem with Windows 8, it was almost too different. Yes, and people got very confused.
Windows 8. I'm talking Windows 98.
I'm sorry.
From 95 to 98. From 95 to 90, it wasn't as big of a thing. But yes, Windows 8. All right. From a technology perspective, very bad. From a marketing perspective, there was in fact enough there for them to.
Oh, I totally agree, but I think it was almost too far. It was almost too big a leap for people to make.
It was too big of a leap. All right.
I still think it was the right leap in a lot of ways. It was a wrong leap in other ways, but the problem was it was too much without them really having sold. Why do you want these differences? Right. People didn't understand why they would want those differences.
Right. But from Windows 11 to Windows 12, is AI going to be in there? Well, of course AI is going to.
But is it going to be enough to make it people think this is a huge difference? That
depends.
Especially when it comes with potential subscriptions, and especially if it comes with potential.
Yep.
The sales crap that we see popping up in Windows 11 over and over.
I hate the sales crap.
And if that's the direction they're going to keep going with it, where does this leave us?
They can with Windows sales crap at that point, because forget it. Thank you very little.
Yeah, I have to say, I think personally, I think they would do better to call it Windows 12. I do think that's probably at this point what they want to do, even though I don't think there's enough in there coming to justify calling it Windows 12 at this point. But having said that, if that move includes, a little more AI, it depends on how they implement it. I've always said, if it actually does something I care about, that's one thing. If it's just general there, I don't care. I don't want it, and I don't care. But on top of all that, if it comes bundled with a lot of chains, and I mean the advertising, and I mean the other stuff that get dragged down in with it, I don't want it. And I'm not. And I'll be honest, if that keeps up, this may be my last version of Windows that I deal with for a while.
Sure.
Because I'm really exhausted from it. I'm just getting exhausted from it.
And that will affect a lot of people, because Windows is, from a consumer perspective, I think is where the hit's going to be felt. From the enterprise perspective, people are going to be with Windows for a long, long time. Now, whether or not they actually go to Windows 12, it may be the Windows 8 or the Windows Vista thing, because they're due for another one of those fiascos.
Well, one of the questions I have though, and I find that where I'm working at, I don't know if it's the same as true where you guys are, but we've gotten away from things that we used to run up and stand up on what would have been Windows 7 or Windows 10 or Windows XP or what it might have been on for these one-off apps. We used to run them on the desktop flavor of Windows. We stopped doing that a long time ago, mostly because of security and other reasons. We started putting them on Windows Server versions. Those don't come with all the layers of crap usually that you get in a Windows 11 or Windows 10 even. So they're not quite as clogged up. So when we say the enterprise stays on Windows, it may be more of that kind of thing, and we may not care. It may not be as big a deal over there because they're not getting the extra baggage.
Right. So we'll see what's going to happen with what's going to be included. All right. Will the hardware requirements change? Well, of course, the hardware.
Of course, they will
change, and especially if AI is involved, you're going to need a neural processing NPU. All right.
Yeah, and that may also lead to more of a push in the ARM platforms because that's all there. So, and it will be in the newer versions of Intel chips, some of the Intel chips, not all, my understanding, but yeah, it's all going to be, what does that look like going forward? It's going to be an interesting couple of years, because they're going to want the NPUs, they're going to want something, or we're going to either that, or we're all going to buy more graphics cards to use as if they were NPUs.
Sure. You may see a upkick in external graphics adapters.
Well, we're getting
docking
ripped off.
Stations
We're getting ripped off on pricing with those things now, so why not?
Yeah, but you may see an upkick in docking stations actually having GPUs,
possibly,
native GPUs or distinct GPUs in them, with a Thunderbolt 4 or even Thunderbolt 5.
Makes me go back to, gee, I missed the Surface Book, but that's a whole other animal.
True. And that also sort of begs the question of the next story here. Will there be a dedicated Copilot key? I actually thought initially, from what I was reading, that it may replace the Windows key. That is not in fact
no,
the case.
not
that
the
is
Windows
not
key.
In fact the case. It is actually going to be an additional key on the keyboard that is specifically designed to trigger the AI.
Well, to be fair, most keyboards have a key to the right of the Alt key on the right-hand side of the keyboard, and it's just going to replace that key. So whatever that is, and it's different depending.
It's the control key.
Well, it's not always a control key. If you look at, for example, the Surface Pro line, it's not a control key. It's actually a menu key. It's a function key. It's different keys on different brands of computers.
Windows key. It may be the Windows key. It could be a function key.
Yeah. The Windows key is always on your left.
Right.
What the one on the right changes though, depending on the brand of the computer.
There's a context.
Correct. And that's what it's really replacing. And that's what it's replacing.
So say on my Asus, I have an Alt and a control key to the right of the space bar.
Correct.
And that's it. So,
right.
I mean,
and on the Surface Pro, I have an Alt key and then I have the context menu key.
Right.
So, and then I have the arrow keys to the right of that. So that's it. And so my point is, it's different on different. It's not consistent today. Going forward, what they'd like us to see is they want it to be this
more consistent
Copilot key, and they want it to be the Copilot key on all these machines.
Right.
Okay, whatever. But do you really think that's going to make us use it? I don't even use the context key today. Why would I?
Right.
Why would I take my hand off the right mouse button?
My right hand is on the mouse. My right hand is not on that part of the keyboard unless I'm speed typing, in which case I'm not hitting those keys anyway.
Right. You aren't going to come near that context button key anyway. So
most of us have it in our muscle memory. We use the Windows key, or we use the control key or the Alt key. We use the left hand ones. We don't tend to use the right hand ones.
What happened to just using your voice like you used to do for Cortana? It's like, I mean,
well, not
that makes much more sense than this.
Hello, computer.
Yeah, although in an office setting, I don't want to be talking to my computer in an office setting.
No,
I just don't.
Well, I don't either.
No, you don't want to do that in an office, and you don't want to put on a headset
or a library or anything else for that matter.
Right. And even still, folks folks even today in 2024, 20 some odd years into having headsets on, and people walking down the street talking to somebody on the phone on a headset, people still think you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, I know.
So
it's a misleading. But this whole thing about putting a Copilot key, I think it's idiotic. I don't think it'll last. It'll be a fad. We'll move on.
I actually think you're correct. I don't. If you want it, you're going to use it through a mouse, or you're going to use it through an icon on the screen with the mouse.
I think so too.
So, yeah, or maybe there may be a voice command, for some places where people feel that that's appropriate. But
well, the fun goes on, guys. The fun goes on.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead and I want to move us to our tip of the week segment, because this week's tip is in fact Windows related. But before we get there, just as a reminder, iTechGear was founded on the intent of making technology easy for everyone to use and understand. And this particular team has dedicated their entire or most of their writing careers to that specific purpose. It is, and it was in fact the reason why iTechGear was founded, helping to make technology easier for folks. So every week, we are going to go ahead and feature a new computing tip authored by one of our experienced Get Off My Lawn editors. If you have questions or if you have suggestions, you can go ahead and send those over to tips@itechgear.org. And this week I've got the tip, and this I think is really kind of cool, especially if you are into really tweaking the daylights out of your Windows PC. Windows 10 introduced a special folder or mode called God mode, and you can still get to it in Windows 11. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do that here because, unfortunately, in order to create this special folder that gets you to a list of control panel commands ad nauseum, to be able to tweak and control every aspect of your Windows installation, it's a big, huge, nasty thing with numbers and letters and symbols and whatnot in it. And if I were to rattle it off, nobody would be able to remember what it is. So please look for the article coming out later this week on iTechGear.org that goes into this. And it's really kind of cool. What you get, you right click, you create a new folder, you name it with this special code. And what you get in its place after you hit enter, after you cut and paste the special code into the folder's name, or you rename the folder and poof, you get the special mode, is a list of, like I said, ad nauseum, every single command that you could ever possibly use in Windows, grouped, or either viewed in a way that you feel is most appropriate. You can view them as icons, or you can view them as groups of text-based links, and you get to change absolutely everything. If, for example, power, you can create a new power plan. You can specify what to do when you close the lid on your machine. How long does your screensaver take effect at all? If so, at what point in time? All right. Will you be able to actually move a mouse and just get right back to work, or will you have to put in a password or a PIN or something? Things like that, that you wouldn't necessarily actually get in settings, which is kind of sort of trying to take over for control panel, but control panel is still available, and you can still do things like this to get this really cool set of options to tweak your computer. And if you're a geek like the four of us here are normally, this is something that's going to curl your toes and really give you the opportunity to customize your Windows installation to the exact point that you like and want it. So look for the article later this week. And that's about it. Did you either of you guys want to chime in something there?
No, that pretty much sums it up as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. It's really a cool way to get a good handle on how your computer behaves, how your Windows PC.
But use with care.
Yes, yes. We are not responsible should you click when you should have clacked, or zigged when you should have zagged. All right.
It's like anything else, that you have the power.
Yes.
You have the power for good or evil.
Yes. Yes. And do not use that power for evil. Anyway, speaking of power and interesting things, I wanted to go ahead and really sort of throw this in last week, but we didn't have a show last week. This week's Pick of the Week segment falls to me. And again, before we get to the actual pick, I want to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and actually used and like enough that we want to recommend to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or any kind of affiliated marketing relationship with. If it was, we, according to the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org, we would have to go ahead and disclose that up front. These are just sincerely things that we believe in, and we want to bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
We like you.
Absolutely. And as I said, this is something that I really would have been, I think, more effective last week, but I wanted to go ahead and mention these in case you have the opportunity to either pick some up maybe at some other kind of specialized store, or maybe at your local library, because I do know that some libraries have some of these. This is for the solar eclipse event that is going to take place tomorrow, April 8th, 2024. This is a set of solar eclipse glasses. You cannot look directly at the sun, especially for a long period of time. You will burn your retinas and you will go blind. All right. But these glasses are smoked and dark enough to allow you to look directly at the sun, to watch the moon pass in between the earth and the sun, and to block off the sun and create that wonderful little sparkly corona that you will probably get if you live in one of the areas that the eclipse is supposed to track through. There are some parts, I believe, of Illinois and Ohio that may actually get some really good shots at it. From what I understand, some areas in Texas, I believe, are the ideal place to actually view this particular eclipse. And from what I understand, this one is got a lot of people actually on the conspiracy path, if you will. This one got a lot of folks to jump on the crazy train. I don't know why.
We've had a lot of that lately, between the Easter conspiracies and now the eclipse conspiracies, and here we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But if you do want to go and stare at the sun, you need a pair of these. This is the Luntz Solar 5-pack premium eclipse glasses. They are approved for the eclipse this year. They're ISO certified. They're made of HD film, and you should be able to stick these over your eyeballs or underneath your glasses or whatever, and be able to look at the eclipse directly through these glasses. And these are this is a pack of 5, and they're available at Amazon for $29. Mine arrived today, so the wife and the grandkids and the kids will all take turns, because I know a lot of schools are allowing kids to either skip class or they're ending their day early to allow the kids to view the
or
eclipse.
Completely closed as in Ohio, which I don't get. But like I saw one of the most dumb responses I saw in the last day was somebody asking, "Is the BMV going to be open tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're going to be open."
Oh yes, but you may want to walk in with a tinfoil hat if you have to go to the DMV tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's just I can't believe the ridiculousness over this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I saw the last one.
Yeah, it was about 7-8 years ago, something like that.
17.
17. It was.
17 was the last one that
Josh, or it was 2017.
Right. And we this I believe
was that a total? Was that a total? Because it didn't have the same path.
Yeah, it was. It was very close.
This is going to be another total, and I believe that this particular total eclipse will be the last one for most of the folks.
2099.
Yeah. So
how's your coverage where you guys?
So
how's your coverage where you guys are? I mean, what?
Where we are, we're not going to we won't see the whole thing here in Chicago.
Yeah,
we won't see
we're about 99.
Yeah, we are too, along path where we
99, and probably the closest place that you would get that would be close to totality would be Delaware, Ohio, which is about an hour away from me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep. About an hour north of you, right?
We were talking, my son Sam is going to skip class because he's only got one class in it, and he's getting an A in that particular class. And if he were to go to class, he would miss the eclipse completely.
Right.
Because the professor did not cancel class. My son Joshua is they're letting him out early so he can go and observe the eclipse. So we'll pick him up about noon. We were thinking about driving a little bit south into southern Illinois to try to go take a 2-3 hour car trip and see if we could get a.
And you have your glasses ready to go.
Right. We're and we'll have tinfoil hats too. So it'll all work.
You need those anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're about 99% here. I could go south toward Toledo and get more coverage, but I think we're good here. 99's fine. Columbus is mostly 99, like you said, Joel, right?
Yep.
98, 99 in that ballpark, I think, especially as you go to the northern parts of the city.
Right. Right. We're too far north. I think we're going to get somewhere in the.
You're too far north and you're too far west, I think.
Yeah. I think we're going to get something in the neighborhood of around anywhere between 40 to 60%, something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, even that's fascinating.
It is.
Right.
So it's even that is fascinating to see. So.
It's a good thing.
It will darken the skies just a tad in our area. It won't be completely dark like where you guys are having, 95+%. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Unless we get a lot of cloud cover, in which case it'll just get dark.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. Yep. That is true. Well, kids, that's the show for this week. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 84. Today we're all retro. Recorded live Sunday, April 7th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central for the ailing Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, Mr. Chris Gavula, and brother Joe McLaughlin. We will see you guys next time.